cap off today's event, we'll be exploring what it means to collaborate and build community in the digital world with Markus Schreyer, SVP of the Americas and Innovation at Design Hotels, and Leilani, Franklin-Apted, Chief Design Officer and Head of Experiences at Unsettled. Together, they took home the Skift Idea Award for Virtual Pivot for their partnership on the Virtual Retreat, a 4-week journey of interactive learning, personal growth, and creative experiences for hoteliers and travel advisors. They were kind enough to put together some behind-the-scenes clips of the experience to give us a sense of what that journey looked like, illustrating how we can connect in a meaningful way during these remote and isolated times. I will shout out that this is not a typical brand sizzle reel, but an honest, authentic look at how this experience came to life. We're excited to share it with you. Let's take a look.
We put this together as a way to try to drive some form of connection and try to chart a path together as a way to look at where the future is going. But we felt it was as important to try to have some sort of learning and self-development piece.
What is it that inspired you to join this journey? Vision for the world and for humanity. Feeling it into your heart. And now we're doing just a little bit of freestyle. Yes. Moving in your body.
Sugar well? Yes. Okay, perfect.
But this is a shift and a trend about self-enlightenment, about journey, about learning, discovery, and determining future life paths.
New focuses on recuperation, restorative values, and ways that we can recalibrate our systems.
When was the last time you tried something new?
What is the human experience? What is the path of our life? What are the things that matter to us?
I feel like we have a responsibility as a community to put our intentions to work.
That we need your help in the marketplace to try to figure out the best way to communicate this to the traveling world.
Touched on so many things that have made up the past month of connection that we've built, the importance of these chromatic mindsets, and really you posed a great question to us. What does that mean for the future? And how are we going to come together to co-create the extraordinary?
Leilani, Markus, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Good to see you all. Thanks.
Great to have you guys too. You know, admittedly, when I was recording that introduction last night, I was feeling very zen, but after that last session, I'm feeling a bit amped up now. And just looking at all the people dancing on Zoom meetings, what exactly are we looking at, and how do I get my Zoom meetings to be more fun like that?
It's interesting. Like we really wanted with this experience to get everyone a little bit out of their chairs. You know, we're all in this fatigue in this lockdown, right? And it was about getting the travel advisors jumping up, you know, breathe, giving them new tools, you know, make them positive about what's ahead of us, where we're all kind of in this crisis mode. Yeah, and that was the refreshing thing to see. It's all even possible over virtual components, right?
Yeah,
so
I think you're looking.
Weeks. Sorry, Leilani.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, I think you're looking at humans being human, even if we're experiencing it through a screen. You know, in their spaces, feeling their bodies moving around, and kind of blurring that line between digital and physical.
I know, it's such a strange thing. You know, even today, as we're doing all these talks and all these discussions. It'd be so great if we could be together and figure out some way to, you know, invoke that spirit of fun in a way that we don't typically get every day or most days now. So I'd like to just hear a little bit about, you know, what was this 4-week virtual retreat journey that you put people on? What was the impetus behind it? And how did it shake out all in all?
Yeah. I think for other design hotels, or we're seeing ourselves as as visionaries in the hospitality space, we always looked in the journey and given an experience, right? So when you look at our further series, which was about or is about transformation of a space of people, I think that's very important, and that's why we were looking into a curriculum from the beginning. And we introduced a study last year together with the Future Laboratory, and you saw Chris Sanderson and Martin Raymond in this quick video. And we were talking about what is the travel of future 2030, what are the travelers looking for, and what we call the traveler. And COVID-19 was an accelerator of this movement, where we talked about conscious travel, where we talked about sustainability, where we talked about drive-through markets, right? And when we, a couple of months ago, sit down together and we were looking at the industry where we're all in the lockdown, and our travel advisors, our travel professionals around the world, we're in a stage of kind of reassessing what are we selling in the future, what is the traveler wants, how are we getting out of this crisis. That was kind of what brought us to the idea of taking them through a curriculum, through a journey, right? And we had a conversation with Unsettled and Lala and the team for a while, talking more on the physical side and bringing experience to our hotels. But we thought it's a perfect opportunity where we always look at innovation, bring 1 and 1 equals 3, bring 2 partners together and make something unique, which brings hope and passion into the travel industry again. And yeah, as we said, get everyone away from their chairs and breathe. But Lala, you have probably a couple of things to share to this process as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we kind of approach this as thinking, you know, Unsettled comes at this from an experiential lens, and we were thinking we're all having experiences now. So how do we make those intentional about the things that we really care about? And so, you know, working with Markus and the Design Hotels team, we just took this really co-created approach to building an experience and a journey where we were all having it in our own physical spaces, but we had this shared experience to go through together. And I think, you know, we found a lot of alignment between Design Hotels and their concept of this chromatic traveler of the future, and then us at Unsettled. We took a look at it and we said, gosh, we've essentially been chromatic travelers in a chromatic community from day one. So we had this shared set of beliefs and values to build off of. And I think that provided a really great platform for creating a journey together.
Right. And, you know, I think right now a lot of people are adapting to this new environment. But Leilani, this is something you've been doing for a while. And I'd love for you to just give a little background about what Unsettled is. And I should also point out to people that her background looks great right now, but she's calling in from Thailand where it's 2 a.m. And I just need to say thank you again for that, by the way.
Thank you. We're well into Friday over here, but anyone that knows me knows that I am such a night owl. So I'm really happy to be here. To talk a little bit about Unsettled and kind of what we brought to this. You know, we are a global community and a kind of experience design and retreat company. And we were founded in this very lofty idea that, you know, we have this lifelong pursuit of growth, meaning, and adventure, which basically means we get to explore the world and play around with the boundaries between life and work and all of these things. And to do it in a shared context and to really see what kind of what happens when we kind of combine our powers and try to redefine what life can offer us. And so we've honed our design skills, you know, mostly over in-person retreats, hundreds of retreats across more than 20 countries. And in the middle of last year, pre-COVID, we asked ourselves this question of how can we unsettle anyone at any point, even if they can't travel? So how do we actually speak to that stationary person? And that led us to exploring this concept of virtual retreats. And luckily, it was just in time. And when we combine that with, you know, Markus's extreme desire to experiment and kind of be a visionary for travel, we were able to really put something together where we had a lot of alignment.
Yeah. So you chose to live that unsettled life. Many of us are unsettled just from the circumstances of the world right now. What we saw in that video, you saw people reflecting, doing meditation. You saw them dancing. You saw them sharing with colleagues, with 35 people that they didn't really know at the start, I'm sure. Maybe some did. But talk to me a little bit about that, how you get people to experiment that way, how you get them to be vulnerable and open to these kinds of experiences, especially now that we're all working in this way and need to find new ways to connect.
I was just thinking, it's funny, I never saw Lala in a different setting than in the middle of the night. So she's really rocking it. I'm actually at the Crosby Street Hotel in New York. Hotel is open, it's vibrant. So I think we're all craving for good news. That's good for the industry. No, you have a valid point, Matt. It was certainly an experiment about, are we getting people around the world engaged in a 4-week concept, right? And I think we're all in this kind of Zoom fatigue, and we didn't want to make it a couple of sessions. We wanted to make a curriculum, a journey. People can self-reflect, they can learn, they can develop, right? And what we saw is we kept it as the philosophy. We didn't put an expectation on top of people of what's coming out of it. It was about co-creation. We wanted to make everyone part of the journey. Let's co-create on the future of travel. Let's go through various kind of formats to open up. And one thing, what was really, I think 2 weeks into the journey, we had a breathworking session where we asked everyone to come up with in a comfortable way, bring a towel, and use your couch, and cameras open. And it was very vulnerable, like you said. It was a very personal setting. And we went through this 2-hour breathwork session, opening up, and I think that made it so unique, so emotional, which opened my eyes in my perspective, where sometimes even on the physical events, we fall short in really connecting with people in a very personal way. And we were able to do this on a virtual layer, which I think is very good news for us as an industry, right, in travel and hospitality.
Mm-hmm. Were you worried at all around the 4 weeks? Sounds pretty daunting. I know it was sort of chopped up into a couple hours here, a couple hours there. Were you worried at all about that time commitment that you were asking from people?
Yeah, it was a big ask. It was a big ask. It's true. I think that we have had some unique opportunities now. To the question about vulnerability, we're all having such intense and magnified emotional experiences that we almost need to be vulnerable. We need to share that layer of depth because of how heavy and how intense things are. And I think to speak into that, we needed that slower pace in a way. We needed time to let things unfold, to digest, to process. So, at the beginning, it felt like a big ask. I think by the end, Markus, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but people were like, can we have 4 more weeks? Can we have more time? It becomes both routine and also something that you see there's just so much more that we can explore together.
Mm-hmm. And Markus, when it comes to travel and hospitality, do you see an opportunity for either virtual or hybrid experiences as a new and different path forward? Or is this really just more of a Band-Aid solution as travel is sort of ceased this year?
Yeah, no, that's a question I get asked a lot. Is this something getting out of COVID-19 and the pandemic and then we back into the normal? I think all brands in travel and hospitality who have a focus on curation and want to give a very unique experience, I think we all were kind of thinking about how we get this across into the world. And when we did, just an example, when we did Further Marfa last year, where we brought a really meaningful story and we collaborated with artists in Marfa, Texas, it was not about bringing hundreds of people into the destination and have a party or something. It was about taking the philosophy of this travel experience and bring it into the world. That's why we created a lot of content. But what was a really pleasant surprise, I think, that we're seeing a layer also in the virtual component. I think moving forward, the virtual experience will almost complement the physical experience, where we're able, as travel and hospitality industry, to connect with the community, to build touch points, to learn, to collaborate, to co-create, and then shift also into the physical experience, right? So I think from a strategy standpoint, from a business model standpoint, virtual will have a lot of components. Let's not make the mistake I think always when we think virtual, we think about technology. And yes, we have to get probably better technology, especially when we talk about experience with music and artists and so on. But it's even in the virtual space, it's about a human touch point, a human connection, and I think that made also this experience so strong.
Yeah, I really love this question too, because I think that as we start to renegotiate the ratio of hybrid, virtual to physical space, that there's actually so much in the future, so much going forward for us to explore. To me, this idea that it's like either 100% physical or 100% digital is such a fallacy, because even when I'm connecting with you digitally, I'm in a physical space, you're in a physical space, there's still that component to play around with. And when I'm in a physical space, more often than not, even if we were together, we'd probably be interacting with some tech, with some digital ways, whether it's our devices in our pockets or tech in our spaces. So it's not just 100% here or there. There's all these different ratios that we can play with going forward, all these grays in between to build out, that I think is really exciting.
And one of the terms you guys keep mentioning is co-creating. As a brand, Markus, is it difficult to let either the audience or let partners create something that's on your behalf? I mean, what does that balance look like between the DNA of the hotel brand versus the partners versus the audience? Are there restrictions that are good, or sort of guidelines that are put in place? How does that work?
I think when you look at the pandemic and COVID-19, it's such an example where I believe, or when you look what's happening, is everyone is fighting for their own sake, right? You see every government, every hospital even is kind of trying to get out of this, right? And I think we as an industry have to co-create, collaborate, and not even within our own industry as hospitality travel. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. And I think the consumer wants us to co-create and come up with interesting experiences. Does it mean that everything is perfect? Everything is polished as we have seen it in the past? Probably not, because it's a different environment we're operating in. Mm-hmm. But also what's also interesting is I think the consumer, in a way, is seeking for this more, and I don't want to use the word authentic because it's such a buzzword, but have an honest, raw experience, right? They want to be part of this journey. They want to co-create. They want to learn. They want to give something back. They want to take something from the trip and in their life, right? So I think we as brands have a huge opportunity there. It's not about just putting a statement on a website. I think we have to co-create. We have to really mean it and walk the talk. And I think we will see this more and more. And it came out of a need, because obviously budgets are not there right now, and no one knows where this is going. But I think that's something we're taking into the new normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a huge need, and that willingness to experiment and to do something that might be a little bit more raw and not so highly polished, not so many stringent guidelines around it. Because I think there's a lot of innovation from a very grassroots level that can come and help both, our travelers and the people that we're talking to in our communities, but also us as businesses to be able to take some of those insights and figure out what's next, either more of this or how do we adapt and build off of some of the successes so it builds into something better in the future.
There's actually like something polished is actually really limited. It's done, it's finished. There's nowhere to go with it. You can consume it passively, but there's no opportunity. So this idea that we can leave things raw or unfinished, and that gives space for people to input their ideas, their thoughts, to own it, to produce it with you. To me, that's actually, there's more possibility in that than in this final polished thing, even though it's a little counterintuitive to how we normally think about things.
Oh, well, I'm absolutely thinking that way. What you've probably seen today, if you've logged onto the event, is we've been trying out a whole ton of different things. We'll see what works, what doesn't, but we'll definitely learn from it. And, interesting times ahead, whether as we're creating things or as we're making business decisions. I think, again, just that willingness to experiment and bring people around ideas, which is actually another topic I want to get into. So now that we don't have a physical location in which this retreat was happening, you guys were really bringing people around philosophies, ideas, and themes. And I want to pull up real quick just an image of some of the themes that you had. Well, I guess week by week, the 4 themes. And what was the sort of deciding factor for what these looked like, and how are they different from one another?
Well, I'd love to mention here that, one of our core aims, a non-negotiable for us, was that this had to be experiential. It had to be intentional. It had to be kind of co-created and done together, but it had to be experienced. So it wasn't about telling people, it was about letting them try it on, experience it for themselves, and having them tell us what it was about. And so these themes came out of the Promatic report that Design Hotels put together. And it was thinking about what are the mindsets, the attitudes, and the values of this future traveler, and how can we as a community, as participants in this retreat, actually try those on for ourselves. So these were our guiding themes that really let us try on the mindsets of this future traveler, to be them rather than be told about them. And I think that kind of guided our content, our co-creation, what we focused on each week, so that, it wasn't just an endless field of possibility. It was really kind of focused on that shared experience.
Do you either of you have a favorite theme of those weeks?
Tough question. Markus, do you have one?
I think, I always passion for purpose, and that's something we were focusing a lot. We by purpose brought in Rockhouse Foundation. I think Paul Salman is joining us today. Nicholas Condar from the Aspire School in the Philippines. Some of our member hotels who really are transforming communities, and I think we as a travel industry can learn a lot. I think that's something what was were very emotional parts of the program. But one thing I learned also, and it goes a little bit in this raw thought you brought up, Matt. We didn't show any presentation, and I know we in hospitality, we love pictures from our hotels. We want to show them. We like to click through presentations. We didn't do any of that, and really focus on the human touch point and the conversation. And I remember we had Carlos Cudier joining us from Grupo Habitat, speaking about the new space you're creating in Mexico City. We didn't show anything. People on the way find their way in the internet, look at the space. But we were really focusing on what Carlos has to say and what's the philosophy of the experience they want to create, right? And often we forget that, even in the physical events, where we're going through we're looking at a presentation, we're looking at a PowerPoint, and we're losing on the essence of what makes travel and hospitality so strong, right? And I think that was something which was fascinating.
I think we banned the word amenities, didn't we, Markus? Which is quite a tricky thing to do when you're literally talking about, fantastically well-equipped hotels. For me, the theme that kind of resonated with me a lot, I think, given the time we were running it, was actually personalized and rare. This is quite a feature of Design Hotels properties. It's something that resonates with us at Unsettled, that we're each on this unique journey, bringing unique experience. But I love this idea that we can find spaces to come together that allow for our differences. And with everything that was going on globally around diversity, inclusion, Black Lives Matter, all of these things, it was wonderful to find a way to celebrate what makes us personalized and rare, but in a way that brought us together instead of separated us. So I really liked that theme.
I love that. And that was obviously a 4-week journey. We're talking about building online community, building connections. Is there an ongoing journey aspect to this? What happens after the 4-week ends? Does the journey continue in any way?
We have a few touch points moving forward. So I think it's one thing we're doing is in the next virtual retreat, the participants who went through the journey will nominate the next travel advisors going through it, and a few others. I think what's more important is we created this sense of belonging. We created this community who is attached to the way we see travel and hospitality moving forward. And Jonathan, one of the co-founder of Unsettled, said it the other day, when you look at Burning Man for it, there's so many Burning Man events going after Burning Man. Even Burning Man is not involved in that, right? But there is this community growing. And I think that's something we're seeing already and what we will encourage, and then obviously see, can we have other partners joining and involving that story, right?
Yeah, there wasn't really an end. It didn't feel like an end. Maybe there weren't stuff regularly scheduled things being dropped in your calendar, but it felt like we had started something rather than ended it. And we made a very big point in our quote unquote closing session to remind people that this has always been about co-creation, and that they now owned this space with us, owned the community, and even owned those chromatic mindsets. And that it was up to us how we wanted to share and continue and grow that. And I think that, yeah, we felt really excited about it. We ended on quite a high.
Well, speaking of ending on quite a high, we are about to wrap up here. I will say just on that last point, one of the, as we were doing some prep work for this session, one of the quotes one of you said was, "If you build it, they will come, but if they build it, they will stay." And I think that is just just a great thing to keep in mind in terms of when we're talking about co-creating community and that kind of environment, because I think it opens up a whole new world. So one final thought, anything that we didn't touch upon that you're optimistic about as we look to the year ahead?
I think I'm super optimistic to just see this opportunity for us. And again, I speak in industry here. As we said earlier, like we have so many human touch points we're creating in travel and hospitality. I think we're developing a kind of new era on the virtual side. And as Lala was saying, this is really just the beginning. We wanted to start something. When you look at, and we were talking about co-creation, collaboration. When you look into gaming, when you look into streaming, when you look into retail, that's all billion-dollar industries, and we in hospitality bringing something to the table, which I think sometimes we tend to forget. And I think if we get encouraged to co-create, collaborate, and taking these new opportunities, which we get probably forced into because of this pandemic, I'm very optimistic, and I'm also optimistic that a lot of agents and travel advisors going through this journey, when we interviewed them after that, kind of the core theme was, I'm a different person since I joined this journey 4 weeks ago, and it gave me a toolkit, it gave me a hope, and it gave me a perspective, and I think that's we're craving for this, and that's so positive.
Yeah. And it gave them community. And I think that was what was really reassuring and hopeful for me, to just remember that, like humans, we want to be connected, and we're going to find ways to do it no matter what. And that, through those connections, we can just start to, or continue to explore and redefine what's possible for us.
Well, Markus, Leilani, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and congratulations again on the win for Skift Idea Awards.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you so much, guys.